The prize is 1 million Kruger.
Bring me Alina Starkov.
Am I a prisoner?
All of Ravka is.
Hi, this is the Professional Amateur Hour coming to you with another review. Over the course of this last week, I watched Netflix's new show Shadow and Bone, which stars Jessie Lee, Freddie Carter, Archie Renault, Amita Suman, Kit Young, and Ben Barnes, among others. This is a show that takes place in a fantasy world. In this fantasy world, it's really about one country. However, the country is split with this giant shadow realm rift. And it's up to the main character to kind of, close the rift, as well as there's a side story about trying to kidnap the main character. What will happen exactly? Well, you'll have to watch and find out. Alright, so what works with this TV show? Well, I think the world is really well thought out. It is based off a book, so probably the author takes some credit there. The magic system's well thought out. I've heard it described as Airbender meets Full Metal Alchemist, so if that's something that sounds interesting, check it out. Also, the history of the world and all the different kind of countries or the surrounding countries and their geopolitical stances on other countries, definitely well thought out as well. So it made it really easy to slip into this world, and it seemed pretty much a real world, like an alive world that you could live in for sure. I won't give too much away. I really enjoyed the story itself as well. With the A plot, there's definitely a main villain, but he's very mysterious and you're not really sure who he is, and there's lots of twists and turns, even up until or even as early as episode 5 out of the whole thing. There's definitely some twists and turns that start coming in, and it really keeps you on the edge of your seat, keeps you guessing. I definitely could not predict it, which was always appreciated in these types of things where you are or where your expectations are beaten, which is really cool. For me, the best part of this show was the Crow storyline. It did remind me of this other book that I really loved, but I really did enjoy them. It's these 3 characters who are tasked with kidnapping the main character, and so they have to sail across the sea and get this lady. And they are just so good together. They're clever, they're charismatic, they work really well together, they play off each other. Everyone works very well on this team. I wish they actually had more of these characters, this storyline. It did seem like the B storyline, but in my heart, it was the A storyline. The acting was all top notch, but I think Kit Young stood out above the rest. He's the newest heartthrob, I guess. He doesn't have many acting credits to his name, so I did have to look him up. He's very, smooth in this one. He's very charismatic, very charming. He plays this gunslinger that, reminds me of most, impossible gunslingers in other books, like The Wolf in Shadow. And, he's just there shooting everything, bouncing bullets. And while cracking one-liners at the same time. He's the only character who really had any memorable lines, in my opinion. And he's also the only character who has a sex scene in the whole show. I know what you're thinking. Yum, yum. Another standout actor was Ben Barnes. He plays kind of this very suave buccaneer character, and he does get typecast, I know, as kind of like a more evil character, and it doesn't necessarily play out that way. His character goes through quite a big storyline in this one, where he starts off where I'm kind of dubious of him, and then I might have reasons for that, but then they change. And his acting throughout the whole thing, you can definitely tell that he put a lot of effort into his role here, which was very appreciated. Another thing I liked was the costumes. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. This country is based on Russia, so all the soldiers have the Russian-style hat and the Russian-style coats, which was really unique kind of in a fantasy show where you don't get kind of this modernization. And the wizards themselves, they had very distinct kind of color outfits with a nice embroidery and stuff. And it really made it easy just to look at any one character and how they're dressed. I could tell exactly what faction they represented. They also went all out on the royalty as well. Definitely high quality production on those costumes, which it just made it seem much more alive, seem much more really like it's lived in. What else can I say about this show? I like the inclusion of guns. So it's like a guns and magic type of show. And they actually have like two armies where army one is the gun army, and then they call it the second army is the wizard army. Why they don't have like a combination of the armies and have like a squad mage or whatever, I think that would be more effective. But hey, it's their world, they get to make it the way they like. I did enjoy that. I thought it was a unique thing, or at least something that you don't see too often, so that was pretty cool. Lastly, the CGI in this was pretty good. There's lots of magic, so it's always like, in your hand or whatever, a little fireball or a little shadow ball or whatever. And it was never anything that I think was too difficult, but they did a good job. I think as the series goes along, it will just end in like a CGI magic fest for sure. But it was done quite well, so they definitely invested in that. All right, so what doesn't work with this show? Well, I haven't seen too many people talking about this, but there is quite a bit of racism in the show. It's never done by the main characters. The main characters are great examples of how to treat people equally. It's always done by kind of background characters or secondary characters, and it's a lot of like anti-Asian kind of racism. Not so much black racism. Like there's black characters, but they never seem to experience this. And so it's things like, hey, Asian, get to the back of the line. And then there's like a party and it's like, oh, can you believe she's Asian? This wizard's Asian. And then there's other ones where it's like, oh, can you believe an Asian can do that? They don't call it Asian. They don't call them Asian in the show, which does throw you off. At the first, they call them like Sui or Chu or Su or something like that. So it is kind of like hidden there. But it's just, in most episodes. I did enjoy that anytime someone is about to die, they'll always, say something racist and then they die. But at the same time, I'm not looking for my fantasy to have like a racist undertones. It doesn't even come into the plot. Like there's no plot where they have to overcome someone who is racist. It's always just this background stuff. And I know racism is a real thing in life, but I don't know, it just seemed like out of place. I haven't seen many people talking about it, so I thought I would definitely mention it here. What else didn't work? Well, I thought the dialogue, like all the story dialogue, was really good. However, I thought there was no standout lines except one. There was only one thing that I really remembered after the whole series was done, which is not a bad thing, but it makes it kind of forgettable in the end. So who is this show for exactly? Well, I think if you like any type of fantasy, you can definitely turn this on and enjoy it. It's just one of those fantasy escapism shows where you can just sit back and go along for a ride and generally enjoy it. However, if the words diversity or woke culture offend you in any way, this is not for you. It's definitely a product of its times and caters to a more modern audience. As for a rating, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. I think Netflix did a pretty good job here. I tried watching some of their other fantasy shows like Warrior Nun or Curse and couldn't get into them, but I think they have something here. But what did you think? Did you see it? Leave us a comment telling us about it. Like and subscribe as always, and I will see you next time.